Okay, so next is our hierarchy and project. So the hierarchy and the project work very similar because things that you select are going to appear in the inspector. These are our objects from the hierarchy standpoint. All of our objects that exist inside of the scene exist in the hierarchy. Anything that is an object we have that doesn't exist in the scene yet is going to be in our assets. We also might have stored objects that we've created in the scene called a prefab. So if you notice, I removed that cube. Let's create a new one. And I'm going to call this cube platform. I'm going to create another one. And I'm going to call this pillar. I don't like that I didn't capitalize those, so I'm going to fix that because we want good naming practices. Capital P, Ryan. All right. Now, let's say I wanted to make a pillar. So this one, I'm going to adjust the scale on the Y to make it a big old pillar column. And that's what I want. And then on my cube is going to be a platform. So I'm going to scale the X to 2 and the Z to 2. And then I'm going to take the Y and go to 0.5. So it's like this little platform for me to jump on. So now I want these two things. I want the platform. So I want the platform and I want the column. Now, if I want to make multiples of these, I could just click on it. I could hit Control D and I would make another platform. So like maybe I'm creating, like a platform or game and I wanted to do that. But let's say I wanted to say, okay, well, this platform is actually too small. I need to make it larger. So I go 3 and I go 3. But these other two platforms did not change size and I want them to be universal. So what I would have to do is create a prefab to store the information. So what we're going to do is just undo that, turn that back to 2. So here's my original platform. We're going to get rid of these 2 duplicates. I'm going to take this original platform and I'm going to shape it however I want. So I'm going to say it is the 3 that I want. This is the larger platform. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to drag it. You see how there's this kind of this drag icon saying that I'm currently dragging it. I'm going to bring it into my assets. Now, when I bring it into my assets, 2 things happen. 1, this turns blue here. And 2, we create a copy of it inside my project. So now, if I were to delete this platform here and drag it from my project onto the hierarchy, I would just be creating that platform here. So think of it like building out an entire object. So like here's this bag and it's got all kinds of stuff in it. So there's all kinds of things in here, all kinds of wires. I'm stuffing it inside this bag and then I want to save it. So then anytime I need to duplicate everything that's inside this bag, I can just pull it from my project folder, throw it onto the scene, and everything that I stored in this bag prior from my scene view is then something that I can constantly duplicate. So now I can create multiple different platforms that are all sharing the universal information. But if I want to change it, it gets a little bit different. So let's say I want to change this platform. First, let's redo this duplication that we did earlier. So I'm duplicating it, and it's just creating another duplication of this original platform. It's just another instance of whatever this instance is. If I were to change this platform, I'm going to say, maybe we change that also to a pillar. And then I copy that one. It's not creating an instance of this. It's creating an instance, a duplicate instance of this. So let's change all these to really wonky, random numbers. Move this one. Yeah, let's get this pillar out the way. Nobody likes you. And let's make this kind of bigger. Let's take this one and let's shrink this back down. Maybe it's like a column, right? So that we've made all of these different platforms from the initial instance of this one. So this is our original platform. We have 3 copies of our original platform that we've adjusted individually. Now you see this blue line? This blue line here is telling us that the prefab of this platform has been changed, and we have the option to override it. If I were to apply this override, it would then update that platform to everything else. So what I changed on here was I think the X is what I changed. And on this one, I changed the Y. So then if I override that one and hit apply, anything with that Y is going to then change. If I look at this one also had a Y change. If I override that, now all of them are going to copy each other. So if I wanted to make sure that I had 3 unique options, we wouldn't want to make those changes within the same prefab. But if I wanted to change everything universally, we could do that by just being like, okay, I have multiple platforms. Maybe my character's jumping, and I want to make sure these are all the same, is when I would do that, is when I would change and override everything all together. You know, maybe we got different heights going on here, right? So he's jumping from here to here. But obviously, if I want a completely different platform, I want to have those unique scenarios, I would just make a new prefab and I would adjust that one. So that way it's not affecting the initial platforms that we wanted. We'll get more into that, messing around with those objects later on. Let me go ahead and delete this. Delete that prefab. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete that. Also, if you do any kind of imports, so like, again, I'll mention Cinti a lot because we're going to use a lot of stuff from Cinti. If I imported Cinti models, they would be displaying here in this assets folder. This is also going to be where all of our scripts are. We have our scenes. So our scene is basically, it's this here. So this is our sample scene. We're going to have multiple different scenes. Think of them as levels. And we got some other folders in here. We got tutorial info, input system. This is all settings, tutorial info, input settings, README, packages. All this stuff is pulled in by Unity by default, depending on what kind of project that you started. This one was we did Universal 3D SRP. So it's got a whole bunch of default stuff. All right, so taking a look now at our pillar here. If we look, we've already messed around with a whole bunch of stuff in our inspector here. So each one of these tabs is a individual component. So think of components like mods or add-ons that adjust and change the way that we interact and control objects in our scene. Whether it's how we want them to interact with other objects or how the player interacts with them, we're adding components to them. Whenever it comes to scripting, adding a script to an object is the same thing as adding a component, such as a mesh renderer or the transform, other stuff that we'll be adding to objects later on. So for example, if I wanted to remove this collider, what this would do is make it where the box no longer has a hitbox and instead it just goes through things. So it's no longer a physical box. It's just this, it's like a ghost basically. It allows you to just walk through it. By putting this collider on, we can no longer walk through the box. And this is all done without you having to do any kind of code. Now, when we're making code, whatever these components are, if we wanted to adjust them in code, we access them by calling the name of that component in code, which we'll go over later on. I almost started talking way too far ahead, but anyway. And we can adjust things also through the project. So objects in our assets, let me remake another prefab here. So we're just storing this pillar inside here so that we can duplicate it whenever we want and make as many instances of this pillar as we want. And if I went, however, and adjusted it here in the project and say, bink, I want that to no longer have a box collider. And then I come out here and look at my pillars. None of them have box colliders. So I can adjust the pillar here, say no mesh renderers. And then now every single pillar has no mesh renderer. I can adjust objects that are stored in my project, and I can adjust individual instances. So I can say, well, just this pillar I want to have a mesh renderer. And now the other ones do not. But now it's telling me, hey, this is adjusting this pillar here. Do we want to save that for everybody? Well, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and turn it all back on for everybody. You know? I feel like I drew kind of on a little bit, so I'm trying to cut that video now where it's at. A lot of the stuff that happens in the scene and a lot of the stuff that happens in inspectors and the hierarchy, it's going to make a lot more sense when we start building an actual game or building a world. At this point, usually what a course would have you do is start putting the building blocks together and creating a scene to get familiar with that. But I'm pretty confident you'll pick that up as we go along. And I feel that it's safe for us to kind of skip the build a world in the scene so you can get familiar and all that stuff. I think we're going to do that within making our first amounts of code. So I'm going to call that for the Unity editor video. Next, we're going to jump into kind of just talking about how code works, how we interact code with objects inside of Unity, and then we're going to start talking about introductory concepts of just C# and the difference between C# code and Unity's code, which will make more sense in the next video. If you're finding us randomly on the internet, do give us a like, subscribe, all that jazz to help us keep making videos. Join our Discord if you found us. There's a lot of students already in there who meet with us every Wednesday. And hopefully I get to meet some of you. Thanks for watching. On to the next video.